Diary, hello. It's the middle of February 2022 and we're here in the study to record the startup of the Cromemco SYS01, which is the label I gave to my 1980s Cromemco computer, which you see behind me over my shoulder. Let me just see if I can get the toolbar up so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, I can. So, on the screen we've got two windows. We have the foreground window here is the Linux computer, which is providing the hard drive to this Cromemco system, and in the background we've got the window that we're going to be interacting with. So this Linux computer has already started up. If we cat/etc rc.local, we'll see that it does a mount. This is a Linux computer by itself, but I have all of the Cromemco data on a separate USB stick. So that's what you see with this mount command here. Then we issue the script to start off the emulator. Let's just cat that up so we know what we're doing. So what that does is it goes into a particular directory and it starts the setup_emu program. So this is a hardware-based emulator whose output is the MFM hard drive connectors, into which the hard drive controller of the Cromemco STDC controller is plugged. So the STDC controller is the kind of latest and last and greatest generation of Cromemco hard disk controller, in my opinion. It's got its own Z80 and 64 kilobytes of memory, and wants to read and write from MFM format hard drives, which is what I am emulating. And using my numbering convention, I have a numbering convention which is the number of cylinders and heads of a hard drive, which is a single file that's stored on a Linux computer, which turns into a drive. So I've got the command line waiting to run. We need to be in Cromemco.emu, which we are in. I'm going to grab the command line to emulate the disk, and there we go. So the emulator started. We can now leave that to do its own business, and we're going to go back to this window, which is a USB connection out of this computer, and then from that to a USB to serial converter. And that serial converter goes into the back of the first COM port on the Cromemco computer, which in this case is attached to the floppy disk controller, because the floppy disk controller has got its own serial port, and there is another 8-port serial card in this computer, so I can attach additional terminals to those other serial connectors. But in this case, the first serial port, which is good enough really these days, is attached to the serial port on the floppy disk controller. Okay, so the computer's been reset. I'm going to hit enter a few times and we should get a memory prompt. Right, that's scanning and checking memory. I'm pressing escape. So you can see it says Cromemco RDOS 03.12. So 3.12 was probably the latest and greatest Cromemco resident disk operating system, RDOS, and it provided support for the STDC hard disk controller. So we've got a CPU card which doesn't have any ROM on it at all. We've got a floppy disk controller, and bizarrely, the ROM on the floppy disk controller can either initiate a boot from a floppy device, or it can talk directly to the hard disk controller if installed, and then it can boot from that hard drive. So the hard drive is partitioned in a number of different ways. I've got multiple partitions on this massively master partition. I know it's partition 6 I need to get to, and it's kind of slipped my memory that number is a hex number. So with 6 it doesn't matter, but it does matter if I had more partitions. So I'm just following my notes here. When you type in B and then ST and then the partition number, so it's B for boot and then it's ST for STDC hard drive controller and 6 for partition 6. So it does another memory test. Now you'll see on the bottom of the screen this is a window onto what the disk drive is actually doing. So you can see it's now reading the memory test on the top was just of the Z80 space, but here when we're doing the standby command we're already in 68,000 mode. So we've switched to the 68,000 processor and we've done a memory test by 16k blocks, and this prompt is now coming and this is now running in 68,000 mode, I believe. So we need to select the STDC controller, which is major device. So rather like traditional Unix, we've got major and minor devices. The major device number for the STDC hard drive controller is 6. So we're going to select 6. And the partition number is 6 again. Now these boot operations can be somewhat automated. So you can tell the floppy disk controller via dip switches to boot to a certain partition, so I wouldn't have to put that in. And then here, when you configure the operating system, you've told the operating system to read this memory test, but then to pause and ask you where it wants to boot to. So that's again an optional step. You can configure it to always to force it to boot to major device 6, minor device 6, and that's a configuration step in the Cromemco operating system. But for better flexibility, it's not automated, and I'm putting that in manually. So hitting enter. Again, you'll see there's quite a lot of disk activity. So cylinder 612, 618. You can see it seeking around. So I've created a little script to copy the most commonly used commands into a RAM disk. So although the hard drive is tens of times faster than the floppy disk, it's not as fast as a in-memory disk, so that's what we're going to use. So we seem to have got the wrong year there. That's terrible. Let's look for the month of March. It's the 16th of March, and it's year 122 for 2022, and we need the time to be 1401. Much better. Okay, let's just show you the partition layout of this hard drive. So partitions go from 0 to 30, but partition 31 is known to be the entire disk. So if you do a disk info of std31, it will show the geometry of this drive. So we've booted up into partition 6, which is here. So you see that's a 20 megabyte, that's quite large for the 1980s. That's a 20 megabyte partition sitting on a 245 megabyte drive. And in this case, since the drive is actually being synthesized, we don't have any bad tractors or sectors. So the alternate track table, which would map bad tracks to better tracks, is empty. Okay, that is the end of the demonstration. And how we're going to shut this baby down? We're going to do a kill -2 one here. Oh, let's just do a PS minus EL. Yeah, so you'll see there's 2 processors running there. And I'm going to do a kill -2, which is the like kill -9 in regular Unix, I'd say. I'll do a kill -2 of the process 1. It's called there, P_1, and that's going to shut the system down. Now, like traditional early Unix systems, if you just to switch off the machine at this point, you could wreak havoc on the disks. So it's not like modern Linux systems where you can just practically switch them off without worrying about it. You could literally destroy the entire disk or a large proportion of the disk by just powering this off if it trundled the heads in the wrong way. So we're not going to do that. We've shut it down gracefully. Now we're back in the emulator that emulates the hard drive, and I want to stop that gracefully, which I'm doing by just pressing the Control-C key, because there's nothing going on now. There's no writes happening. You can see the last thing that went on was I think a seek command from 612 to 692. Anyway, so I'm going to press Control-C here, and then I'm going to do a shutdown minus halt now on the controlling Linux computer. Yeah, I'm pressing enter, nothing's happening. That's a great sign. Okay, that will do it. Let's finish it now, and thanks for watching.